Revealed, how 1,000 medieval peasants defied odds to survive a life-changing famine year. The village of Windy Hollow clung to the edge of survival like a worn-out blanket against a biting winter gale. Here, amidst rugged homes and frostbitten fruit trees, lived Jonah, a devoted father of 3 and a farmer who had long learned the art of perseverance. At 35, he carried the burdens of generations on his broad shoulders, channeling every ounce of grit and determination into the unforgiving soil that lay beneath the shadow of cruel Lord Willoughby's estate. With each sunrise, Jonah plowed his fields, whispering prayers, hoping for rain or food or a sign of salvation. Yet as the days turned to weeks, and weeks into months, his hopes wilted alongside the crops. The laughter of children had faded, replaced by the haunting sound of empty bellies and whispered fears of famine creeping closer. The very essence of their community was slipping all for the want of a harvest. Gathering neighbors tight within his calloused hands, Jonah felt the flicker of unity dance in the winter air, a warmth in the chill of despair. Together, they shared what little rations remained, pooling their strength and their spirit. This village was more than a collection of homes, it was a testament to resilience, to American values of kinship, determination, and unwavering support. But even here, lurking shadows stirred a festering mistrust that could easily tip their fragile balance. At a town meeting lit by flickering candles, desperation took a seat at the table alongside them. As the landlords proposed their tempting deal, food in exchange for land, the crowd's reactions carved deep lines of division. Fear darted from one face to another, feeding the whispers of betrayal that hovered just above the floorboards. Jonah felt the tight knot of anxiety clench within him. Friendships frayed as neighbors yelled and pointed fingers. There he stood, heart racing as emotions exploded into the air. "We must stand together," he shouted, his voice cracking like ice under the weight of his plea. "This land is our family, our heritage." But the chatter of doubt danced around him, drowning his words. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Silence momentarily blanketed the crowd, the air thick with tension. Will we sacrifice everything we've fought for? A voice rang out, raw with anger. Jonah's breath caught, pulses quickening. Faces blurred together, reflecting the fierce determination of those who may yet refuse to bend beneath the weight of oppression. In that heart-stopping moment, he felt the world shift like the freezing winds outside. Each face told a story of strength and heartbreak, but more importantly, of shared identity. This is our fight. Not just for food, but for us. Jonah's words poured out like a river unleashed, seeing the flicker of hope ignite in his neighbor's eyes. As the murmurs swelled into a chorus of uncertainty, Jonah held tight to his son's hand, the familiar warmth offering solace amidst the turmoil. They were standing on the edge of something monumental, poised to either reclaim their dignity or succumb to the darkness of despair. With the winter's breath at their backs, the weight of their decisions hung in the air. Would they rise together, or would the fragility of their bonds scatter like leaves on the winds of winter? The murmur of discontent rippled through the hall, stirring a cautionary unease. Jonah could feel it creeping in, a cold doubt festering at the edges of solidarity. He drew a deep breath, steeling himself against the fray. "We can't let fear decide for us," he said, his voice steadying as he stepped further into the heart of the gathering. The flickering candlelight painted shadows on the walls, warping the faces of his friends into masks of uncertainty. Martha, a widow with a tuft of faded red hair and piercing blue eyes, stood up. "What will happen to our children, Jonah? If we give in, what of their future?" Her voice trembled, a mirror of the worry that etched itself into the creases of every man and woman present. "And if we don't?" A burly man named Thomas shot back, his hands clenched into fists as he leaned forward. "What will happen if we stay strong and starve? We need to eat. It's survival." Jonah's heart raced as he witnessed the clashing of hearts and wills. It was a delicate dance of hope and despair. "Survival isn't just about food," he urged, his voice rising over the growing din. "It's about our lives, our dignity. We can't trade our land for a meal. Our homes are what protect us, what give us strength. Think of the generations before us." Before more divisions could fragment their gathering, a small voice broke through, echoing innocence among hardened hearts. Jonah turned to see his daughter, Eliza, barely 7, peeking from behind his leg. She had a crooked smile, one that could light even the darkest of nights. "Daddy, can we plant more seeds?" she asked, her big brown eyes wide with concern. A soft hush fell over the crowd. Jonah knelt to her height, brushing a stray hair from her face. "We'll find a way, my little flower," he whispered, feeling the warmth of her small body grounding him in chaos. "We'll plant seeds of hope, promise, and strength." In that moment, her innocence stitched a single thread of unity among them, reminding all of what lay at stake. A flicker of resolve ignited in Jonah's chest. "We'll bolster our defenses, we'll work together," he proclaimed, a renewed fire sparking in his voice. "Let us band together, ask for assistance, reach out to the neighboring villages. There are others in need, and perhaps they will help us stand against Lord Willoughby." There was a pause, followed by a hesitant ripple of agreement. One by one, hands began to rise, a show of solidarity reclaiming the air. Even Thomas, the naysayer, crossed his arms but then nodded, softened by the collective spirit filling the room. Martha shot Jonah a grateful smile, lighting a spark of hope within him. But he knew this would not be easy. Lord Willoughby was a powerful man with deep pockets, and desperation could lead to dark decisions. As dusk settled, a chilling wind swept through Windy Hollow. Yet, as shadows embraced the village, Jonah felt the beginnings of a plan forming in his mind. It could be a long shot, perhaps foolhardy, but it was better than caving in. He could gather resources, strategize, create barter systems. The crowd of neighbors began breaking apart, voices still echoing with a mix of fear and hope. At least they weren't alone in facing the unknown anymore. Jonah's heart swelled with a blend of determination and anxiety as he glanced down at Eliza, who was now humming a small tune. But then a thought cut through the quiet triumph: what would happen when they approached the neighboring villages? Would they be met with open arms, or would they be turned away? The frost of winter whispered promises of trials ahead. Jonah knew tomorrow would bring a brave new endeavor, but would they find the strength to stand together when the darkest moments approached? Morning broke over Windy Hollow with a shroud of mist that twisted around the village like a wandering spirit. As the sun slowly illuminated the frost-kissed fields, Jonah sat at the small kitchen table, his hands cradling a chipped mug of steaming tea. He could hear Eliza humming softly from the other room, and a small smile broke through his worry. Yet, the weight of his responsibilities hung heavy in the air. Today was crucial. He needed to rally the villagers, to ensure everyone understood the importance of reaching out to their neighbors. They couldn't wait until the winds of change blew favorably, they needed to act now. Taking a breath, Jonah stood, his resolve steeling. He stepped outside, the brisk morning air stinging his cheeks. The village seemed quieter than usual, as if it held its breath, waiting to see what direction they would take. One by one, the villagers gathered again in the hall, shadows of doubt still clinging to the corners of their minds. Jonah could see their anxiety reflected in familiar faces. The flicker of yesterday's hopeful solidarity seemed dimmer today. Thomas was there, arms crossed, still caught in storms of uncertainty. "Today," Jonah began, his voice steady, "we reach for help. We can't just survive, it's time to thrive again." A distant murmur stirred through the crowd. Some nodded, while others shifted their weight nervously. "And what if they turn us away?" Martha spoke up, her voice tight. "What if they refuse to help?" Jonah's heart ached for her. He could feel the collective fear. "What if they don't?" He countered gently. "What if they see our struggle and decide to stand with us? Hope isn't just a concept, it's a choice we make." He looked around at those gathered, searching for glimmers of resolve. Finding help is a chance to forge new connections. We lean on each other, we have to let our voices be heard. Eliza peeked from behind Jonah's leg again, filling an emptiness in his heart. "Daddy," she said, her voice small yet unwavering, "isn't that what you told me? To be brave?" Jonah knelt beside her, both of them framed in the sunlight pouring through the hall's windows. "Yes, my little flower. It takes courage to be brave." With a spark igniting fresh determination, Jonah stood again. He called for volunteers to join him in seeking help from the neighboring villages. To his delight, several hands shot up. Even Thomas, now more resolved, stepped forward. As they organized into small groups, Jonah felt a flicker of optimism ignite the gathering. Perhaps they could make it work. They could not afford to wait for change to come. They had to chase it down, but just as hope blossomed a new concern crept in. What if they ask for something we cannot give? Martha's question echoed grimly. The atmosphere chilled momentarily, and Jonah felt a shudder of uncertainty course through him. He could almost sense the looming threat of Lord Willoughby, ready to pounce on any weakness. As Jonah looked around, realizing the fragile tapestry of unity they were weaving, one thought pierced through his mind above all: what could they possibly offer in return for help when they themselves were so desolate? The promise of the day loomed heavy as they started to disperse into groups. Jonah could see the weight of the decision ahead, shadows of doubt seeping back in at the edges. The future felt unsteady, hovering on a knife's edge. Gathering his strength, he whispered to Eliza, "No matter what happens, we will face it together." But with a sinking heart, he questioned how much longer that promise could hold when outside their little bubble, the world remained untouched by their resolve. As they left the hall, he wondered, was this a turning point, or just the beginning of something even harder? The chill of winter reminded them of their vulnerability. For all of their bravery, would it be enough when challenges stood at their door? The morning faded into a brighter afternoon, yet the chill lingered. Jonah walked alongside the group he had gathered, determination propelling his feet forward. Eliza, her small fingers wrapped tightly around his hand, skipped beside him. Her lightness almost countered the heaviness on his heart. Each step felt like a march toward unknown peril, but one part of him pulsed with hope. They were headed toward Harvest Ridge, the first neighboring community on their list. Jonah had heard stories of its bountiful harvests and warm-hearted folk over the years, yet the thought of approaching them filled him with apprehension. What if Harvest Ridge turned their backs, just like they had seen before? "Aren't you scared, Daddy?" Eliza asked, her eyes wide with innocence. Jonah knelt down to meet her gaze. "A little, but sometimes being brave means pushing through fear." She nodded, absorbing his words like a sponge. As they reached the village border, Jonah's heart raced. The fields of Harvest Ridge stretched before them, vibrant greens contrasting the muted browns of Windy Hollow. He could hear the distant laughter of children and the soft clucking of chickens, sounds that spoke of prosperity. He felt a pang of envy mixed with the urgency of their mission. They crossed the threshold into Harvest Ridge and found the first group of villagers chatting under the shade of a large oak tree. Jonah's pulse quickened. Names circulated in his mind: Roger, Sarah, and Madeline. Friends of old. He approached them, gripping the crumpled letter of necessity in his pocket, one he had rewritten more times than he could count. "Roger." Jonah called out, raising his free hand in greeting. The man turned, his brows furrowing in confusion before transforming into surprise. "Jonah. It's been ages." "Too long," Jonah replied, forcing a smile. "We need your help." As the words tumbled out, a quick hush fell over the group. Jonah felt their initial warmth freeze over, transforming into the familiar shadows of skepticism. Roger exchanged glances with Sarah, who still held a basket full of ripe tomatoes. "What do you mean, help?" she asked, the edge in her voice sharper than he expected. "We're facing hard times in Windy Hollow," Jonah explained, holding up a hand as if to physically shield their vulnerability. "We're reaching out to neighboring villages for support, resources, anything. We want to make sure everyone is safe." Mumbling spread like wildfire among the cluster of villagers. Jonah recognized the skepticism etched into their faces, the fear that they couldn't afford to share, much less take in those from another village that had fallen behind. "Have you asked?" Roger began, his voice trailing off. "Lord Willoughby." Jonah finished for him, his gut twisting at the mention of the name. "We can't depend on him anymore. We need to trust each other." A tension rippled through the air. Just as Jonah felt a wave of hopelessness threaten to engulf him, Eliza's small voice piped up from beside him. "They helped us last summer when we ran out of honey," she chirped, her sweet tone cutting through the heaviness. The villagers looked down at her, and he saw a flicker of something. Was it remembrance or concern? Jonah clasped his daughter's hand tighter. "What we need now is community," he said, shaking off the tension. "Together, we can create something stronger." Martha's earlier question echoed in his mind as he awaited their response. What if they asked for something he couldn't give? He could almost feel the weight of their doubts resting on him, but he brightened his voice. "If we face this together, we won't be vulnerable anymore." This time, the murmurs grew louder, building in intensity. Jonah scanned the faces, looking for signs of understanding, but doubt still danced in their eyes. Was this plea for help, so readily made, just another burden laid bare? Then, as if stepping out of the shadows, a girl Jonah hadn't seen before emerged from behind the mellow crowd. Her hair was as golden as the sun above. "Why don't we show them what we already have?" she offered, her playful challenge. Gaining traction, Jonah stared, caught in the tide of fresh ideas swirling around him, and felt the stirrings of hope break through the wall of uncertainty. Could they change minds with warmth instead of desperation? The answer lay ahead, but would they be willing to embrace the uncertain path they now dared to tread? A collective breath was held, and Jonah's heart raced. As he looked into the eyes of his friends, he wondered if they could truly build a bridge between villages or if the shadows would tear them apart once again. Would they take this leap of faith together, or would the day end in silence and missed opportunity? The atmosphere buzzed with uncertainty as Jonah's plea hung in the air, thick with tension. The girl with golden hair took a few steps forward, a determined look on her youthful face. "We can show them what we have, right? It's not just about sharing," she insisted, her voice steady, "but about coming together to survive." Her words sank in, igniting curiosity among the villagers. For a brief moment, they exchanged intrigued glances. Jonah could feel a spark of possibility igniting within him. Could they really rally together? "Let us gather some things," Roger suggested, visibly softer now as he turned back to his friends. "We could spare a few baskets of vegetables, some of that honey Eliza mentioned." Jonah felt a mixture of relief and renewed hope. Perhaps they were turning a corner after all. The group began to liven up, chatting amongst themselves, each voice weaving into an emergent chorus of solidarity. Eliza twirled around, her joy infectious as it oscillated between worry and elation. "See? They're starting to understand," she exclaimed with a wide smile, her innocence shining through the moment, but Jonah remained cautious. Even in their excitement, the specter of doubt lingered in the corners of his mind. He watched as the villagers began to gather supplies, each basket filling with fruits and vegetables that would benefit not only Windy Hollow but also serve as a sign of unity. As they worked, Jonah approached Roger. "We really appreciate this," he said earnestly, keeping his voice low. "But we need to do more than just share food. We need to build relationships, trust." Roger nodded solemnly but didn't reply. Instead, he picked up a tomato and tossed it in a basket. Jonah sensed that beneath that nod lay a fear of the unknown, a fear that had guarded Harvest Ridge long before Jonah returned with a request for help. As the afternoon waned, the villagers gathered around, displaying their bounty. Jonah stood at the center, with Eliza beside him, bathed in the golden light that began to stretch across the horizon. A palpable sense of community began to rise from the soil of old fears. "Let us not just be neighbors today," Jonah called out, raising his hand. "Let us forge a new path." Encouraged, the villagers joined the conversation, sharing ideas for future collaboration. Jonah's vision expanded as he realized this could be more than a simple exchange, it could be the beginning of a deeper connection. Casserole nights. A villager yelled out, evoking laughter. Harvest games. Another chimed in enthusiastically, and soon they were exchanging laughter and stories, voices mingling with one another like a vibrant tapestry. Yet, amidst the uplifting atmosphere, Jonah's worry nestled in his heart. What about tomorrow? Would the warmth of today carry into future struggles? As dusk approached, the villagers took stock of supplies gathered, eyes twinkling with the possibility of what lay ahead. Jonah felt like he was standing on the edge of something important, the gravity of their moment drawing them together like roots intertwining underground. Then he noticed the girl with the golden hair again, standing slightly apart, her gaze thoughtful. She approached him, her expression serious. "There is something people don't know, Jonah. Harvest Ridge is facing its own troubles." The ground beneath his feet seemed to shift as her words hit him. What do you mean?" "Some of us might not have enough to share next time," she revealed quietly. "But if we unite and create a plan, we might just survive together." The weight of her confession sank in, a stone in his gut. Jonah felt his heart race, the potential for crisis blooming into something far more complicated. Could they truly face their individual battles together? And if they did, was it enough to safeguard them all? With renewed urgency, Jonah realized they still had a long road ahead. Could they navigate the uncertainty that would, without a doubt, come knocking at their doors again? As they stood under the fading light, an unspoken agreement hovered in the air between them. Would Harvest Ridge be ready to embrace the change that was coming, and forge a bond strong enough to withstand whatever challenges lay ahead? The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows across the faces of the villagers, illuminating their eager expressions. Jonah took a deep breath, absorbing the energy as they huddled closer, the gathering feeling more like a family reunion than a community meeting. "We can't just let Harvest Ridge darkness weigh us down," Jonah began, raising his voice above the flicker of flames and whispers. "If we know about each other's worries, we can find solutions together." Eliza stood beside him, her bright eyes shining with resolve. "We can form a communal garden. Share the work and share the harvest." Her enthusiasm sparked another wave of ideas from the crowd. "I can teach some recipes that use less," another woman declared. "Saves on supplies, brings us closer." Small nods scattered across the group, punctuated by expressions of hope. Each spark ignited more ideas. Jonah felt his heart swell as laughter filled the air, mingling with creative possibilities that cascaded like petals in a breeze, yet he could not shake the shadow of caution. What if their dreams of unity couldn't stand up to the challenges looming on the horizon? Someone called out, breaking his thoughts. "I've got seeds from last season. If we all plant them together, then we can grow even more than before," Jonah finished, his voice steadying. "Every berry, every vegetable, each bit feeds everyone." A soft murmur rolled through the crowd, generated by newfound belief, but deep down, Jonah understood their unity had to be matched by preparation. The girl with golden hair, whose name Jonah learned was Nora, caught his eye, her foreboding from earlier echoing in his mind. The troubles faced by Harvest Ridge were more than just whispers in the wind. "Will everyone bring something next week?" Eliza asked, her face glowing with ambition. "Anything you can spare to get started?" People nodded, some murmuring agreements. Jonah couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement bubble within. Maybe this was the beginning of something massive, a ripple of change that could connect them all. As they settled into the heart of the gathering, Jonah spotted Roger slipping away from the center. Curiosity plucked at him. He could feel the weight of Roger's hesitation, a quiet storm brewing beneath that rugged exterior. "Hey!" Jonah called out, stepping away from the warmth of the fire to join Roger. "You okay?" Roger paused, glancing back with a deep frown. "I'm just thinking this feels too good. I can't shake the thought that someone might pull the rug out from under us." Jonah tried to keep his expression steady. "But we won't know unless we try, right? Together, we're stronger." "Stronger?" Roger's gaze hardened, shadows deepening his features. What if it makes us weaker? What if trust breaks and the community splits apart? The weight of his words pressed heavily upon Jonah, stifling his earlier enthusiasm. Doubt seeped back into his thoughts. What if that very fear kept them from emerging into the light? A call from the group pulled his focus. Eliza was urging the villagers to share their stories, voices rising in warmth and laughter, yet Jonah couldn't shake the fear that someone might not be as committed as the rest. As dark clouds rolled in overhead, conjuring a distant storm, Jonah's heart sank with resolve. They needed more than dreams and promises, they needed clarity on what lay ahead. Turning back to Roger, Jonah took a deep breath. We have to ensure everyone's on board. No secrets, only hope. Roger nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding softening his expression. I can help with that, he said, even as unease lingered in his voice. As they retraced their steps toward the fire, Jonah felt an impending chill in the air. What other secrets lurked among them? Would they be strong enough to confront them together? The night deepened, wrapped in unpredictability. Jonah thought about the path ahead, suspicion and trust intertwined in a delicate dance. But one thought held him steady. Next week, we'll bring the truth. No more hiding. And as he looked around at the faces in the flickering light, hope began to take shape in their shared commitment. But would the strength of that commitment hold against the storms that came next? The next week arrived, heavy with anticipation and tension. Jonah woke early, the crisp morning air biting at his skin. He thought about the villagers' promises, the seeds they pledged to bring, and the stories they needed to share. Each one had a voice, but Jonah felt nervous. Could they rally together? Would fear keep them apart? The sun rose slowly, washing the town in golden light. As people gathered at the clearing, Jonah felt the weight of community pressing on his shoulders, a warmth that filled the space around him but also nudged at his insecurities. He spotted Eliza, her warm smile breaking the tension. Ready? She asked, bouncing slightly on her heels. He nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. The villagers formed a circle, and Jonah noticed glances darting between them, some hopeful, others hesitant. The cool breeze rustled the leaves overhead, contrasting the palpable warmth of connection rising between the gathered people. Jonah's heart raced as he stepped forward, his mind racing with thoughts and fears. Thanks for coming, everyone, he started, trying to keep his voice steady. Today is about sharing. Honesty, trust, and hope. His eyes scanned the group, landing on Roger, who stood a few paces back, eyes shadowed. Jonah swallowed hard, steering his focus to the crowd. Let us talk about our worries, our hopes. And, most importantly, how we can help each other. A tentative energy rippled through the group. Eliza raised her hand. I know we've all faced challenges. Perhaps we can start by sharing one worry we have about Harvest Ridge. Eyes shifted downward, some feet shuffled in the grass. Jonah felt the tension coil tighter, as though they all stood on the edge of something deep and unsettling. Money is tight, an older man finally spoke up. I fear the crops aren't going to bring enough this year, even with our plans. His voice trembled slightly, a mixture of vulnerability and defiance. Transportation is too expensive, another chimed in. What if it rains? What if floods ruin everything? Each worried expression twisted Jonah's stomach tighter. He realized these fears were real, not just personal demons but shared struggles. They all felt the pressure, the weight of Harvest Ridge. Eliza glanced around, gathering unspoken thoughts. But we can plant more together, right? She said, desperation creeping into her tone. If we combine all our efforts. But that's risky, Roger cut in sharply, eyes flashing. What if someone doesn't put in the effort? What if they steal from us? A deep silence fell. Jonah's heart raced, terror creeping in. Was Roger right? Could theft, or betrayal, fracture this fragile community before it even blossomed? Is that what you think of us, Roger? Eliza's voice cracked, hurt hanging thick in the air. Do you trust none of us? Jonah stepped closer, feeling the storm brewing around them. This is why we're here, to confront these fears. We can't let doubt pull us down. Let us open up and work through this, together. Slowly, a hand rose from the outskirts, a weary-looking woman. I was told there's strength in numbers, but it's hard to believe sometimes. As Jonah watched her, he felt hope flicker anew. Let us find strength in our stories. Each of us has something to offer. If we share our fears today, we'll be stronger as a united front tomorrow. The tension shattered like glass, cracking laughs and questions flying freely into the air. Voices layered together, a tapestry woven from concern, but also from light. Yet, as Jonah's heart swelled, a whisper of doubt slinked back in. As much as they spoke of honesty, what secret shadows hid in the hearts of the villagers? Next week, we need to bring out those shadows, too, Jonah thought, a shiver running down his spine. The cycle of fears had only just begun. Could they strip away their doubts and emerge stronger? Or would the very darkness they sought to highlight divide them more than ever? The upcoming week loomed large, filled with unanswered questions and tentative hope. The week slipped by like sand through fingers, a blur of activity and anxiety. Jonah felt the weight of time stretching, each day merging into the next. Yet, when the sun peeked over the horizon on the morning of their next gathering, it seemed to shine with renewed purpose. The villagers, hopeful yet anxious, began filing into the clearing, and Jonah felt a crackling tension fill the air. As they came together, it was as if the world around them faded, leaving only the collective heartbeat of Harvest Ridge pulsing with life and fear. Jonah's heart raced at the sight of familiar faces, some weary, others bright with determination. He caught Eliza's eye again, a reassuring presence amid the unease. Today we'll share our stories, Jonah said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. Let us dig deeper into our fears and dreams. Let us reveal not just the surface worries but the shadows that keep us awake at night. Eliza nodded, her expression serious. It's time to lay it all on the table. The villagers formed their circle once more. This time, however, the energy was different, charged with resolve. Jonah felt the air thick with a sense of communal purpose, yet an underlying vulnerability lurked just beneath the surface. A voice broke through the stillness. It was Clara, the village seamstress, her hands trembling slightly. "I've felt so alone in this fight," she confessed, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. "Every stitch I make is a reminder of the family I lost last year. What if this year is worse? What will happen to those of us who have nothing left?" Jonah's heart sank. Clara's fear echoed through the group, and his mind raced, searching for a way to comfort her. "We're here for you, Clara. We're stronger together. We all need to lean on each other in times like this." The circle shifted, many heads nodding in agreement. Roger finally spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "I'm worried, too. What if we trust each other and it backfires? What if someone takes advantage of our bond?" Jonah felt the weight of those words pressing against him. "But what if it doesn't?" He countered, determination rising within him. "What if this trust builds something beautiful? Something that we can fight for?" One by one, villagers shared their stories, their losses, their hopes, their hidden heartaches. A cacophony of raw emotion erupted, voices tumbling over one another in a rush to be heard. Jonah felt the heaviness of despair lift slightly, replaced by a shared bond of understanding, and then, as the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the grass, an unexpected silence fell over the crowd. Jonah could feel it in the air, a collective realization that they were all grappling with the same fears. Yet beyond fear, a resolve began to blossom. Eliza stepped forward, her face resolute. "Let us set aside our doubts and plan. We need to create a network that can support every single one of us. If we're open about our struggles, we can find ways to help one another." The villagers looked at each other, hesitant but intrigued. Jonah saw hope glimmering in their eyes. But even as excitement began to build, a deeper truth gnawed at Jonah's gut. Was this unity truly possible? And what lay ahead when they began to confront those shadows hiding deep within? Next week, Jonah thought, his heartbeat quickening, we have to make a decision, to forge a path in darkness or risk losing our way completely. The sun sank below the horizon, a fiery promise of change hanging in the air. All that remained was a question: could they weave the fabric of trust strong enough to face what was coming? In that moment, Jonah knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Jonah woke the next morning, the weight of the previous night's revelation still heavy on his mind. Sunlight filtered through the window, dappling the wooden floor with golden patches. He took a deep breath, filled with the scent of fresh earth and blooming wildflowers. Outside, the village was already alive, sounds of morning stirring and calls echoing through the air. As he dressed, he caught glimpses of the doubt and courage flickering in the eyes of his fellow villagers from last night. They had all shared pieces of their souls, linking their destinies, yet the enormity of their commitment gnawed at him. What if they failed? What if the bond they were trying to forge turned brittle under pressure? Jonah. Eliza's voice broke through his thoughts, the excitement clear in her tone. We have to gather everyone again today. I've been thinking about our next steps. He met her in the clearing, where they had shared their fears, a location suddenly heavy with expectation. Villagers were already arriving, their faces smeared with a mix of nervousness and hope. Jonah could sense that they were hungry for direction, for a plan they could rally around. Let us hear your ideas. He called out as Eliza stood next to him, her eyes sparkling with determination. We're all in this together, so speak up. One by one, voices broke through the air. Mrs. Thompson suggested they start a communal garden to bolster their food supplies. When the crops come in, we can share what we grow, ensuring no one has to go without. Cheers erupted as Roger jumped in next. What if we created work parties? We can help each other fix homes, mend roofs, and support families in need. We can't just survive, we need to thrive together. Jonah felt the energy pulse through him. They were starting to envision a future rooted not in what they feared but in what they could build. Eliza added her own idea, her voice steady and vibrant. We need to have regular meetings. Let us keep this momentum going. We can share resources, support our young ones, and foster creativity. A wave of collaboration washed over the clearing, and the villagers rallied, brainstorming ideas, laughter cutting through the tension like a warm breeze. For the first time, Jonah felt the ache of doubt in his chest fade, replaced with a firm belief that they could create something powerful. Suddenly, Clara stood up, her hands shaking but her eyes fierce. We have to ensure that everyone can contribute. No one should feel alone again. Let us share not just food and labor but stories. Light our spirits together through art and music. Jonah beamed at her words. It was a challenge to weave a tapestry of connection, one thread at a time. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Let us have a festival." Excited murmurs spread like wildfire. A harvest festival. Someone else called, heartily chiming in. Ideas began to bounce around: games, dances, cooking contests. The very air felt electric. As the sun set that day, paintings of brilliant oranges and violets colored the sky, mirroring their growing hope. With each new idea, Jonah's heart swelled. They were not just hoping anymore, they were creating a community, but as laughter filled the clearing, a shadow in sight grew more pronounced. The looming threat of the famine still lingered. Jonah couldn't shake the feeling that they needed to figure out how to tackle that darkness head-on. Despite the excitement surrounding him, a tension brewed deep within, leaving a lingering question in his mind: when the time came for the festival, would it be a feast of joy or a reminder of what they had lost? He glanced over at Eliza, her eyes bright and focused, and he wondered if he could keep their hope alive in the face of what was still to come. The challenge they faced was far from over. Would the unity they forged hold strong when the true test arrived? The sun rose brightly over Windy Hollow, its golden rays spilling warmth onto the village, brushing away the shadows of doubt. Jonah stood outside, pulse quickening as the realization dawned on him: today was the day. Community unity wasn't just an idea anymore, it was a living, breathing pact waiting to be fulfilled. Gathering in the clearing became more than just a meeting point, it evolved into a sacred ground where fears transformed into hope. As the villagers arrived, Jonah noticed the mix of excitement and anxiety. Eliza clutched his hand tightly, skipping with a vibrant energy he wished to capture and hold forever. "Daddy, today will be amazing." She beamed, innocence shining through her words. Jonah smiled back, his heart swelling with pride. As the people formed a circle, the buzz of anticipation enveloped them all. Jonah stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Thank you all for coming. Today isn't just about survival, it's about thriving together." Cheers erupted, voices rising like a choir, and Jonah felt the weight of their shared purpose lift him. "Let us remember last week," he continued, "when we dared to voice our fears. Today, we'll transform them into actions." Eliza piped up again, her excitement infectious. "And I'll help organize the garden." Laughter rolled through the crowd, binding them in joy. Not long after, Clara stood, her voice steady. "And for the harvest festival, let us mix our goods with the talents of our hands. Everyone can take part." The villagers nodded, exchanging hopeful glances. Creatively emboldened, ideas poured forth like a refreshing spring. Recipes were shared, hands raised in volunteering, laughter intertwined with planning, but even as light shone brighter, Jonah couldn't shake the gnawing worry embedded in his stomach. Would all this enthusiasm last when uncertainty loomed? Harvest time lay ahead, and whispers of famine still echoed ominously in the backdrop. He glanced at Roger, who still held apprehension despite the bright spirit of the day. "What if we fail? What if we miss the mark and can't pull everything together?" "The only way to defeat fear is to face it," Jonah replied firmly, "together." And with that reminder, Roger began shaking hands with others, cracking open the wall he had built. The optimism ignited a spark of change, a movement woven into each thread of their gathering. "Let us face this together," Jonah shouted, and a cheer erupted, rippling among the crowd. As the festival approached, not only did the villagers prepare their gardens, but the air thickened with energy. They moved alongside one another, laughter blending with hard work, constructing bonds like a tapestry. Days slipped into nights, and soon Windy Hollow blossomed with vibrant life and camaraderie. The communal garden yielded life in rows of green. Families shared labor, stories, and laughter in unison, mixing back and forth until the very essence of kinship draped over their hearts like a warm blanket. But the true test loomed ahead. The night before the festival, clouds rolled in, thick and forbidding, mimicking the anxiety crossing Jonah's heart. Rain lashed against the rooftops. Jonah knew it was a risk, but he also realized that fear could not lead them. Resilience had to shine brighter than any storm. Eliza stood at his side, her small figure leaning against his leg. "What if it rains?" she asked softly, worry knitting her brow. "Rain might come," Jonah said, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "But we'll be ready, my little flower. Together, we've created something beautiful. We'll weather the storm, and we'll dance in the rain." When morning dawned bright and clear, the festival unfolded beautifully. The villagers, representing Harvest Ridge and Windy Hollow, came together like long-lost friends, laughter cascading over the feast spread before them. Banners painted with colors of hope fluttered in the light breeze, their vibrancy mirroring the joy blooming across every face gathered. As Jonah watched Eliza twirling, surrounded by new friends, he felt a rush of joy swell within. In this moment, it wasn't just about food or survival, it was about love and unity. "Look at what we've built," Jonah shouted, raising his voice above the laughter. "Not just homes, but family. Let our hearts stay knitted together," and this commitment spread like wildflowers. Cheers echoed back, rippling through their joined hands and connected hearts. They danced, they shared stories, feasting and celebrating before the looming threat of famine could overshadow this foundation they had built. Each shared meal tasted sweeter, buoyed by the realization that they were in this struggle together. As twilight descended, the vibrant sunset painted hues of orange and purple across the sky, blending beautifully with the laughter and music filling the air. Jonah could feel a palpable sense of triumph coursing through them. Through shared toil, they had woven an unbreakable bond, forging a path through darkness into vibrant light. Jonah stood amidst the gathered crowd, filled with gratitude. "This festival," he proclaimed, "is only the beginning. Together, we'll face what comes next, for we shall never stand alone." Eliza beamed beside him, her innocent joy igniting something more profound within everyone gathered. It went beyond survival. It was love, connection, and a fierce spirit, resilient enough to combat whatever storms lay ahead. And deep down, Jonah knew that this community, wrapped in newfound strength and trust, had the heart to face anything. Their journey wouldn't end here, it would ripple through every season and all challenges that awaited, anchored in roots of resilience. Their triumph was assured as long as they ventured forward together, leaving fear behind, hand in hand. Now, as their hearts thumped with the rhythm of new beginnings, the horizon shimmered with possibilities. You need to subscribe now to witness the incredible transformations of communities like this one. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to help lift us up in the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Together we share our stories, and don't wait, not even one more second, share this with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of unity and transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.